Okay, in this video we're going to talk to you about composite images. And basically what it is, it's a way to control the opacity or the transparency on different parts of your image. I'm going to go ahead and turn a few layers off so you can see from this movie poster sample what we're basically talking about. You'll notice in our layers window I've got a new kind of idea. There's a layer mask over here to the right. And the concept is, on your mask, if you paint white in the center, it'll let you see that normally. And as it goes to darker and darker grays, it eventually hides more and more of that image out of that same view. So the actual, if you look at the thumbnail closely, it might be hard on this view, but this photo is completely normal. It's a full normal size traditional kind of picture that you might just paste in there. What we've done is we've controlled the transparency in specific parts of that image. So instead of just doing the opacity slider, we fade the whole thing out. With this masking concept, you really have the ability to make various parts of the image fade away. And with that, you can stack images together on top of each other, and you'll end up with a really nice collection of, with images that kind of fade and blend together. And you might notice this in a lot of, movie poster ideas or book covers. We'll do the same kind of ideas with as far as projects when we teach you how to do this part. But it's a really neat concept that allows you to, to kind of change the imagery of your project quite a bit, because you can, this is one of the main reasons I got into Photoshop in the first place. I'd seen this kind of work on some projects, and I was like, man, that is pretty cool. I got to check that out. So we'll give you a little taste of how to do that right now. In fact, I'm going to go ahead and delete some of these layer masks, and I'll show you how to build one with the same image. So here's basically what I pulled off the internet to start with. And the process you're going to do is you're going to add this concept down here in your layers window called layer mask. So that's the little guy right there. I'll click on it, and by default it comes in completely normal with white, which means it's not going to hide or do anything or affect the image at all at this point, because 100% white is going to show you 100% opacity of that layer. So it's kind of, you'll have to kind of keep that idea. The darker and darker grays and then blacks you get, the more and more you would hide. So if you look at some of these thumbnails on this part, you can kind of see that little shadowy look that it gets as it starts to hide more and more of these images. So I'll show you another one here so you can kind of see how that works. But it's pretty much white in the top corner, so you see this image up here, normal. Our main subject is nice and bright, and then it slowly fades away and dissipates. And that's because we painted or used the gradient tool to make this kind of white to grayscale and then black kind of area. So we're going to teach you how to use the gradient tool to put down some basic colors, and then you'll typically kind of fine-tune the idea to kind of bring back into full view certain parts of the image or to hide other parts. So it'll be a kind of interesting process, but we're going to go ahead and get back to the one we had originally here. So I've got a mask, nothing has changed on it, it's 100% showing. So I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the gradient tool, and then we're going to set it for white and black. Pretty much when you're working on a mask, that's what you're going to be working on. So that is a good point too, to make sure you're working and selecting the mask, not on the layer itself, because you could still paint on this. If you click on this part in your layers window, you could actually paint white or black on this file, and we don't want to do that, or on that layer. We actually want to paint on the layer mask, so it's kind of hard to see which part is designated, but here's the mask part and here is the image part. So if you start to paint, and let me get to my paintbrush tool, or actually the gradient tool first, if it does that, obviously you're not on the right part. So I'm going to undo that and get to the right part of that layer, and that's the mask part. So now that I do that same technique, I'm going to use the radial gradient in this case because my subject's right in the center of that image there, and I'm going to drag towards the outside. And you can kind of see I kept part of the image, and then part of it is faded away. You can change the way this tool works, so it'll put down more and more white in the center, and then it went to darker and darker grays. But probably the easiest way is to draw new little lines and see, the longer you draw the line, the more you're going to see. And if you drag it, drag the line really far, you might be able to see the main subject pretty well, but it's going to maybe fade out the edges. And that's typically where I like to stop. But I can still kind of barely see the edge of that layer, kind of the frame part of it. And then if I can see my image, I'm going to go back to the main subject of this particular layer and kind of brighten that up. And that's where you kind of get back into more of an airbrushing. So it's really kind of a combination. You can, kind of experiment with the gradient tool to get yourself into some kind of point where you might be pretty happy. And then if you don't get completely what you want, which you probably won't, then you're going to go back to a different tool, the paintbrush tool, and we're going to paint with either white or black. And I like to use these big fat brushes and with just a little bit of opacity. kind of like when we were painting before. So that way, if I'm going to put a little bit of white here, I can slowly bring back into view my main subject. So I'm going to go ahead and make a few clicks here. You can kind of see this guy is starting to show back up, and I want to bring back into full view all the things that are the most important or most interesting parts of that image. So I'm going to go ahead and keep doing that part. And it's turned out pretty good. I can always come back later and add more detail to it or take things away. So if I want to take something away, actually a good idea right now. Let me switch over to black. So flip that into black mode. And then black is basically going to let you do the same thing. But I'm going to take away the opacity or fade it out. And it's the same kind of thing you could do with the eraser tool, but the thing that's nice about this is you can just take it away and you can add it back. So it's pretty easy to experiment and a lot easier to kind of get to a final project that you're going to be happy with. The eraser tool would definitely work, but this is the technique that you need to demonstrate when you start getting into these projects, is the ability to add mask, typically add the gradient, and then go back and fine-tune your work with the paintbrush tool. So normally a couple reminders. You're usually on the gradient tool. I set it to go from white to black, and I'll do another one on here so you can kind of see. We'll just repeat the same process basically then. Let me go to the next layer here, and I'm going to actually delete this layer mask and show you how to add that again. We'll just kind of repeat the whole bit. But it is good to remember that there are multiple types of gradient tools. So the next one, I think we'll try the linear gradient tool, which is the kind of the line one. So let's get back to what we need to do originally, which is add the mask. Here's the little add layer mask icon. That you can do that through menu commands too. Once you add it, it shouldn't change anything. The view should still be 100% of that layer because it's 100% white. But we're going to start with the gradient tool, going white to black, because we're going to be able to pick our main subject, with our gradient tool and kind of drag away from them. And that way we can keep, the main subject or the main body parts or, main interest areas of the photo. And the line we draw will slowly fade away the rest of it. So actually, let me switch over to this other gradient tool and try it this way. You can kind of see the line one might work good in this example because I want to keep most of the main image here and then fade it away. And you might end up changing your idea. When you throw a few couple images in here, it's going to probably take you a few tries to figure out what gradient tool might work best to start it off with, where to position that image on your file. So you probably do a lot of experimenting. But now that I've got this kind of going in the right direction, I'm going to go ahead and switch over to the paintbrush tool and do the same kind of thing we did before. So if I want to bring something back into detail, I can paint with white, and I'm just putting a little bit of white, and I can bring that thing back into focus. And if I need to fade something out, flip-flop, go to black, and I can take away those edges that are at the end of the layers. And if there's anything else I want to dissipate or kind of fade away, we'll just do that with a lot of little clickety clicks. And again, white brings it back, and then black's going to fade it. So you may have to experiment quite a bit with where the layers go and how they look together. And once you start getting back and forth, it is going to take a little bit of practice of figuring out what layer might work well in one position versus another. But it's a pretty fun process. I'm going to go ahead and wrap it up there, and we'll probably do another video that'll give you more details on how to set up your project. But that'll be a good start to at least practice with.